In the fall of 1994, in a quiet little town in Nebraska, something strange began to happen. A golden retriever, old, limping slightly, started stopping at the same manhole every single day. Rain or shine. Morning or night. He would sit beside it, ears perked, staring into the darkness below. People passed by, confused, whispering, even laughing at first. But then, they started to notice his eyes. They weren't just watching. They were waiting. Longing. As if something, or someone, was supposed to come back. And when a local boy finally opened the cover, what they found inside changed everything. Forever. It's not what you think. And it's not what they hoped. This is not just a story about a dog. It's a story about loyalty, loss, and what we all try to bury. Hit like, subscribe and let's go. His name was Buddy. A gentle old soul with fur the color of honey and eyes that had seen too much. He belonged to no one and yet, to everyone. Folks in town swore he'd been around since the late 80s, wandering the same sidewalks, napping near the diner's back door, trotting behind kids on their bikes. Main Street knew his rhythm. He'd show up at sunrise, disappear by dusk. Kids fed him crusts from peanut butter sandwiches, old men tipped their hats. Life in Fairdale, Nebraska was slow, simple, predictable. And Buddy was part of that comfort. But then, in early October, something changed. He stopped wandering. Instead, he walked the same route, every single day, ending at that rusted manhole near the edge of town. Just standing there. Staring. For hours. As if waiting for something no one else could see. At first, no one thought much of it. Old dog's just tired, they'd say. Let him be. But Buddy didn't just sit by that manhole, he stared into it. Motionless. Every single day. Hours passed. Rain fell. Leaves gathered at his paws. He never moved. And when someone tried to coax him away with treats or gentle calls, he'd simply glance up, then look back down, as if something inside was more important than anything out here. Children stopped riding past. Grown-ups began crossing the street. Something about the way he waited, it didn't feel right anymore. It wasn't just habit. It was obsession. One morning, a woman swore she heard him whining softly. Not from pain, but from grief. And then one boy, curious, brave, or maybe just reckless, leaned close and whispered, "Is someone down there?" No one answered. But something shifted. By mid-October, Buddy's ritual had become impossible to ignore. He no longer wandered, no longer begged for scraps or chased after rustling leaves. His world had shrunk to a single circle of rusted iron and darkness beneath. Locals started keeping their distance. Something about that spot, about him, felt wrong now. A man from the hardware store claimed he saw Buddy pawing gently at the edges of the manhole one night, long after sunset. Another swore he heard scratching, soft, rhythmic, from deep below. But when they listened again, silence. The town's laughter faded. Kids stopped lingering. People whispered, "There's something down there." And still, Buddy sat. Loyal. Unmoving. His once soft eyes now hollow with waiting. As Halloween neared, the air turned colder, and so did the looks folks gave that patch of pavement. Something had taken hold. But no one yet dared to open the cover. Not yet. It was the morning after Halloween when everything changed. Fog hung low over Fairdale, the streets eerily quiet. Buddy was there, as always, guarding the manhole like a soldier at his post. But that day, 12-year-old Mason Carter, skinny, curious, too smart for his own good, came with a crowbar he'd borrowed from his dad's shed. No one saw him approach, except Buddy, who stood up for the first time in days. Tail still. Eyes locked. Mason hesitated, then wedged the crowbar under the cover and pried. The metal groaned. A gust of foul, damp air rushed upward. And then they heard it. A sound no one expected, whimpering. Faint. Weak. Alive. Buddy let out a low, trembling bark, as if saying, "I told you." Mason dropped to his knees, peering into the hole. What he saw inside didn't make sense. A pair of glowing eyes, not human. Not Buddy's. But familiar. And terrified. The town gathered quickly. Word spread like wildfire, something was alive beneath the streets. Firemen came. Police. A camera crew from Omaha showed up before noon. The manhole was fully opened, and as lights were lowered into the darkness, the truth began to flicker into view. Curled against the damp concrete, bones jutting under matted fur, was a dog. Small. Weak. Shivering. And nearly identical to Buddy. Same coat. Same eyes. Just younger. The shock hit hard. Two golden retrievers, one above, one below. Trapped. Forgotten. No one knew how long it had been down there. Days? Weeks? Maybe more. But Buddy knew. He had always known. People gasped. A woman wept. Mason turned away, pale. This wasn't just a strange story anymore. It was neglect. Pain. A life nearly lost while the town looked the other way. And suddenly, everyone realized, Buddy hadn't been waiting. He'd been grieving. Loudly. Silently. All along. As rescuers prepared to lower a harness and pull the trapped dog to safety, a voice cut through the murmuring crowd, sharp, cold, and strangely familiar. It was Walter Griggs, the reclusive man who lived near the edge of town. He stepped forward, gripping an old photograph in shaking hands, two golden retrievers, Buddy, and Max. His dogs. Or, they had been. "I thought he ran off," Walter muttered, voice cracked with something between guilt and fear. "That storm in '91. I never found him." The crowd turned. Whispers hissed. Max had been down there for 3 years. Alone. Forgotten. But Walter hadn't looked. Not really. Now, as officials hesitated, debating whether to proceed, Buddy growled low, a sound no one had ever heard from him before. The decision was clear, yet heavy: save Max and face what it meant, or walk away again. The question hung thick in the air. Would they choose compassion, or convenience? As they lowered the harness, something snapped. The ground trembled, just slightly, but enough. Centimeters from Max, the old sewer wall crumbled, sending a spray of stones and foul water upward. Max yelped. Buddy barked, loud, urgent, like a cry that had waited years to be heard. Chaos erupted. The rescuers scrambled. Someone shouted to stop. For a moment, it looked like the tunnel would collapse entirely, burying Max alive. People froze, helpless. And Walter turned his back. Walked away. The same choice, all over again. But Mason didn't move. He slid to the edge, hands shaking, and yelled, "Pull him. Now." Against orders, one of the firemen did. The harness jerked, then rose, inch by inch, mud-slicked fur and trembling limbs appearing from the dark. And then Max was out. Barely breathing. But alive. Buddy rushed to him, nose pressed to nose, tail still. The town stood silent. And in that silence, hope exhaled. They carried Max to the vet wrapped in blankets, his heartbeat faint but steady. People offered rides, coats, money, anything. Even Walter, now sitting alone on the curb, eyes glassy, whispered, "I didn't know." I didn't want to know. But the town had already begun to change. Someone brought Buddy a fresh bowl of water. Another laid a cushion near the firehouse door, where he could rest. For the first time, Fairdale saw him not just as a friendly stray, but as a witness. A guardian. A soul who'd kept vigil while everyone else moved on. Days later, Max opened his eyes. Weak, but alive. When he stood, wobbly, unsure, Buddy was right there, shoulder to shoulder. Mason laughed through tears. And something shifted in that town. Fences were fixed. Stray animals brought in. People looked each other in the eye again. As if Buddy had reminded them all, loyalty lives where love is lost, and found again. Winter came early that year. Snow dusted the rooftops of Fairdale, covering the streets where Buddy once wandered alone. But now, he wasn't alone. Max walked beside him, slower, scarred, but alive. The town had changed, quietly. People noticed more. Listened longer. Mason started volunteering at the shelter. The manhole was sealed, but a small plaque was placed beside it, for those who wait. Buddy still paused there sometimes, not in grief, but in memory. Because some holes don't just open in the ground, they open in hearts. And sometimes, healing begins when someone refuses to look away. So now, let me ask you, how many buddies have you passed by in your life? Waiting. Watching. Hoping someone will care. Did you stop, or keep walking? Hit like if this story moved you. Subscribe for more true tales. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done that day at the manhole?